Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're logging in from, if you're watching this live. Welcome. My name is Glen Mulcahy, your host for Love of the Game Summits, podcasts, and now live streams. I'm super excited today that I'm joined with our co-host for mental fitness for sport and life upcoming summit on July 17th, and one of our amazing guest speakers who will be opening up the event, Kevin Rempel. He is a 2014 Paralympic bronze medalist in sledge hockey, author of the book Still Standing When You Have Every Reason to Give Up, Keep Going, creator of the mindset coaching program titled the Resilience Toolbox. After being paralyzed in 2006, he surmounted incredible odds to be with us here today and is sharing his incredible story that has captivated audiences worldwide. His story of perseverance is one we can all relate to, not because of his achievements as an Olympic athlete, but because of his attitude and mental resilience that has developed while trying to succeed. Regardless of your circumstances, he is here to remind you that the greater the challenge you are facing, the greater the story will be. Your story will be. You too can become a hero in your own words. I can't thank you enough, Kevin, for joining us today. And then our co-host, Rob Pallante, who is the founder of Mindset Body Bank, who will be co-hosting the event, and his story is also one that you all need to hear. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and let's get at her.
Sounds good, Glenn.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
So first question I'm going to ask, and then Rob, I'm sure, has got a bunch that you'll ask as well, is why don't you give us a little bit of background of where you grew up and what was your kid years like that kind of ramped up to where you are now?
Yeah, sure thing. Today I'm known as a Paralympian in sledge hockey, and I played hockey as a kid, but I really wasn't any good at it whatsoever. I played probably from about the age of 8 until 11 or 12-ish, something like that. And what I ended up discovering was motocross. So my neighbors down the street got some bikes for Christmas, and that became the new dream. I kind of didn't really have a thing for team sports. I found more excitement pursuing something as an individual. And so skateboard, BMX, motocross, things like that became my niche. And so I was pursuing that dream. Thought, X Games were the dream, but really I just wanted to be the best I could be locally. I didn't know if I had the world stage talent. And so put on my first show, Canada Day of 2006. And then 2 weeks later at my second show, I ended up crashing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a pretty heavy crash. First jump of the day, not even trying a trick. For those that don't know, I was riding freestyle motocross. So that's where you pull stunts on the bike, not racing. It's Superman seat grabs and pulling a cliffhanger. And so the first jump of the day, I wasn't even trying to trick, but mentally wasn't focused. And hit the eject button midair. So I fell 75 feet steel to steel without the bike and ended up breaking my back, my pelvis, my ribs, and I was instantly paralyzed.
Wow.
Kev, I got a quick question for you right on that note. And thanks again for taking the time to come on here with Glenn and I today. You use a term there, you hit the eject button. At what point when you're in the air, like where do you realize, okay, I got two choices here and one is the eject button. A, when do you make that decision? Two, what's the other choice?
Great question. Basically what it was is like as soon as like in skate, moto, BMX, snowboarding, like as soon as you take off the lip, like if it's going right or wrong. And so as soon as I took off, I knew my body position wasn't in the right position, and my back end was coming up high. So the split second thought was, if I stay on the bike, I may end up head diving into the ground and potentially breaking my neck, or I can jump off the bike and risk breaking my legs. And that was the best case scenario. So literally like in that millisecond, it's like a car crash where you have so many thoughts going through your head that I just thought, if I can get off the bike and away from the bike, I'll sacrifice my legs and save my neck, and ended up breaking my back.
Well, and it's interesting. Well, and thanks for sharing that. And I know we're coming up on the anniversary of it here in a couple of weeks. I asked that question, and just for anybody that knows my story, some of you may don't. I had to make a similar a similar decision when I was in my motorcycle crash in 2015. And mine, I wasn't going over a jump, thank God, on my Harley. However, I had somebody making a left-hand turn into me, and I had a choice to make because there was a dump truck parked at the stop sign on the street that intersected with the road that I was traveling on. And it was either try to move around the vehicle. And I actually, one of the last things I remember was standing up on the bike to try to get out of the way as the car was making the left-hand turn and swerve around it, or drive headfirst into a dump truck and try and bail at that point. And, I don't remember much after it, but, I did wind up, apparently, according to the reports, I kind of leaped in the air right around impact and got tossed because of the momentum that I got hit. Unfortunately, I had some pretty bad injuries, not as severe as yours in the fact that I had to, break my back, but I was still surviving from my life. So it's interesting at those intersection, those moments in our life when we have to make these split-second decisions, because it's not something you can really prepare for.
No, definitely not. It is instinctual. Like there, without getting too far off on a tangent or something like that, like there's an art to crashing. Once you skateboarding is a great example. If you watch skateboarders crash, they tumble and roll like very fluidly because you learn how to just go with your body, and that actually helps you prevent injuries. If you're rigid, you'll often end up getting hurt worse. So again, without getting too far off, there's an art to crashing, and that instinctual
I'm
ability.
Sure being in motocross, you've experienced that a couple of times before this particular accident.
Yeah.
So the motocross era started really young, like 12, 13, and this happened about 10 years later, if I'm doing the math
23.
right. But I can't even imagine the headspace from going from, the epitome where you're at. What was going through your mind when it happened, like when you're recovering in the hospital?
So I'll give some further context for the viewers who haven't heard the whole story and kind of tie it back. So fortunately, when I broke my back, I became an incomplete paraplegic. So I didn't sever my spinal cord. I just fractured and dislocated my vertebrae.
Okay.
And then surgery realigned it. So I say with a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, I've actually been able to get back walking again. If anyone is watching thinking I'm in a wheelchair, I'm actually standing on my feet and I can squat and move around and do a lot. The kicker to my story is my dad was also paralyzed. I remember we're supposed to save a bit here.
Go for it. Go for it now.
Just go for it, man.
Well, there's still the lessons. There's so many lessons to learn. So my dad was paralyzed before my accident in a hunting accident, fell from the tree, broke his back, and became a complete paraplegic as well. And tying it back to my mindset, if you can imagine, my mom had both husband and son in wheelchairs at the exact same time. A lot of my drive came from my dad, or seeing what I didn't want from within my dad. My dad struggled with his injury. And so not only seeing how much negativity can play a role in our mindset, sending us into a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to take on those beliefs, make those decisions. And then at the same time, as I speak about in my keynote on the hero mindset, which we'll be speaking on when we get together in July on the 17th, is accepting responsibility is one of the most fundamental key principles. And so I knew that when I looked at other riders who were heroes in my eyes, is that each of them decided to pick themselves back up. There was no blaming the referee. There was no blaming the game. There was no blaming the circumstances. What's happened has happened. And as an athlete, I will from this day forward accept responsibility that regardless of where my life is headed, whether I continue with sport or I have to reinvent myself or find a new career, like I'm responsible for how I choose to move forward. And so I had my days where I felt like giving up. It was not easy for sure, but the mental switch for me once I got injured, as I was laying in the hospital bed, is that I wanted to be the comeback story in my own movie. So at that point, it was just, okay, what's the next step? Let's just start to move forward and figure. And then really, it was like figuring it out as we went along.
Yeah. But Kevin, I got a question. When you talk about that being the comeback story in your own movie, the comeback hero in your own movie, looking back over your life before the accident, leading up to it, obviously there's probably people that were influential, people you looked up to. How much who were they, both in your sports and your personal life, and how did that play a role in your recovery?
That was a super great question. So again, touching on some of the other work that I've done and what we'll be speaking about in our time together in July, I have a program called the Resilience Toolbox, and it's a collection of tools and strategies that have helped me in moments like you're describing. Now, one of the first lessons in the program is called Locate Your Hero. Again, the reason you're describing here is like I had other riders to look up to. So Evel Knievel is not a hero to me. He was someone I admired. But in my riding days, some people might be familiar with names like Tony Hawk or Matt Hoffman or Travis Pastrana or Mike Metzger. And so those extreme sports athletes were who I looked up to. But then when I got injured, then it started to change because I needed someone in a spinal cord community, for example, to inspire me. And so someone I discovered is a guy named W. Mitchell. And I forget how I got onto him, but long story short, it's crazy. But this guy in his late teens, early 20s, riding a motorcycle, vehicle cuts him off in San Francisco, California. Gas cap comes off as he's skidding, becomes a burn victim, loses his fingertips. That's pretty bad. Then the guy recovers, flying a plane as a hobby, malfunctions, crash landing, becomes a paraplegic. So he's a burn victim all over his face, his body, loses his fingertips, and then he's in a wheelchair paralyzed, and he still becomes, not only he rebuilds his life again, becomes the mayor of Crested Butte, Colorado. So now he's the face of a city, helps to save it from a mining company, speaks for Bill Clinton, Tony Robbins.
Wow. And
I was like, are you serious? Like, I know that my story is crazy between me and my dad, but this guy.
Yeah.
And so
that's another level.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So during my recovery, as an example, I had my motocross heroes, but then I found people like Mitchell to inspire me life with a spinal cord injury. And then I discovered the Paralympics and other Paralympians, people who have lost their leg, who were born with disabilities or acquired something else later in life. And these individuals were who helped show me that the life I'd like to live is possible.
It's there's so much inspiration that can be found when we open our eyes and look around at others who have maybe gone through it, and so transitioning from sport, now you're at this point in your life where you're looking for some inspiration to keep going. Kudos to you for digging deep inside, finding an example. And you talk about Paralympians, so maybe we use this as an opportunity to kind of transition. And maybe Glen's got a question on it. I won't. Yeah, I'm going to steal your thunder, Glen.
I know you're going to because I was going there.
I'm already down the path. I'm not backing up on that now. So how did you? At what point do you make this transition from motocross riding? Obviously, hockey's in your blood. You're a Canadian guy. You played a little bit as a younger person, and now you decide, hey, you know what? Sledge hockey, that's my game. Was it that simple, or how did that come about?
Yes and no. What I mean by that is, when I got injured, the only Paralympic sport I knew about was wheelchair racing. I didn't know there's sledge hockey, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair tennis. There's track and field. There's so many different things out there. So it wasn't easy in the sense that it took me 2 years to discover that this sport even existed. And if anybody hasn't seen it, to give you like an idea of what it looks like, sledge hockey is where you play hockey sitting down on the ice and you pull yourself around using your arms. And so once I discovered the sport, I then ended up quickly joining the provincial team, or making the provincial team and Team Canada, playing for 5 years. And it was an easy transition or easy decision to invest in the sport because I played as a kid. And I was riding my dirt bike after my accident for fun, but I couldn't ride like I used to. And so sledge hockey gave me the opportunity to become very physically active again. Living with a disability, it's challenging to get a sweat on, to get that endorphin rush, to even just find the camaraderie that sports brings to so many of us. And so once I got on the ice to play sledge, putting on a helmet was like motocross, and it was like when I was younger, getting on the gear, getting sweaty. Like I would leave the rink in my wheelchair, because I was still using wheelchair at that time, and feel like I felt when I rode motocross, and feel like I felt when I played hockey as a kid. And not only is that beneficial physically to move better and become stronger, but like psychologically, one of the reasons why I love promoting the sport so much and speak about it is because whether you have a disability or not, is that we all need to continually stay active and remind ourselves why sport is so important. And again, going back to our time together in July, it's like, we've been out of the game in some ways for a year now, and it is crucial that we get as many people as possible participating in sports again and just getting active in any way.
I couldn't agree more. And the whole sledge analogy where he was going, what was it like when you actually had that opportunity to represent Canada and go to Sochi for the Olympic or Paralympic Games? What's that experience like?
Yep. Some of my favorite memories are just playing on the world stage, having the experience of being treated world class as an athlete, getting paid to be an athlete. Those were some of my highlights. I remember the Russians who were in the Paralympic venue were so kind to us. We made friends with so many of them. Feeling the love from back home of all the Canadians who would support us, sending us messages, seeing kids who have done like school projects on the sport or on us as a team, or even individuals as players. Like those were cool memories. When we actually got the medal put around our neck, that was something I'll never forget, the weight of it, because it's super legit. Like,
yeah, they're pretty big. Yeah.
It's a real heavy, that's, I don't know how many millimeters. That's probably like 5, 6, 7 millimeters thick. And again, for me, it was just like, it's that moment where you feel like you did it. It's like you've had your mind set on something for so long, and then when you finally reach that moment, like it's very fulfilling. So there's so many different aspects to the games that I love and remember, but those are a few that really stand out, and it's just an opportunity to really have everything come full circle for all the effort that you put in to try and reach a goal.
I would think anytime you get to don the jersey of your country and hear your national anthem on an international stage is something you never really get the chance. You'll never forget. So great experience, right?
My first exposure actually to seeing sledge hockey live was when I was coaching spring hockey, and the Olympic team was practicing before our practice in the spring because they were ramping up. And I was just blown away of the velocity of the shots that you guys could take in sledge hockey. I was like, this is insane. Like, and my players were like, coach, you got to see this. So there was one guy during a practice actually broke the glass. And I was like, that, it just shows that how you can overcome certain challenges. First of all,
if you've ever seen, when I walked in and saw Kevin sitting down the other day at lunch, I mean, this guy's pretty jacked. I'm a big guy. from the waist up is what I saw him. I mean, he's got arms that are like jacked, like this. So there's a lot of upper body stuff going on there.
Well, if you can believe, I'm smaller than I used to be. Like, if you saw the guys that play 24/7 now, like the Team Canada is out right now in Czech Republic today, currently competing in the World Championships with USA and Czech and Korea and all this many other teams. And like, because it's like you say, it's all upper body, it's all core strength, and it's a lot of shoulders. And we have to spend so much time building our shoulders, like working our rotator cuffs and our scapula muscles so that they stay in place. Because if we have them weak and they start to go forward, just like we would sitting at the office, is that they're out of place. You take a hit, and all of a sudden your shoulders whacked, and you can't play. So yeah, it's full-time upper bodybuilding, not full bodybuilding. Yeah. Can't say there's many leg days involved in sledge hockey, but the arms get jacked, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So tell us about the sledge hockey.
Can I just jump in for a second? Have you ever seen a guy in a wheelchair wearing a T-shirt that says "I skipped leg day"?
Oh, that's awesome. You have a sense of humor, man.
There's a few of them out there.
That's cool. That's cool.
So since that point that you were at the Olympics, you've now, the Sledge Hockey Experience is something that's one of the hats that you wear promoting it. Tell us a little bit about that to get more exposure, because when your precursor, the segue was it only took you a couple of years to even find out about that it was a sport that you could participate in. Yeah,
so having finished playing with Team Canada, looking at building life in life after sport, I wanted to build a business again because in motocross I had entrepreneurial passion, and so I created a program called the Sledge Hockey Experience. And what it is a team building program, turnkey, where I bring a group of people together to experience the sport and also gain perspective on people with disabilities. And so COVID shut that down. I plan to reopen. I literally just like 7 days ago started to explore what that looks like, and I have no opening date currently. But basically, for how much sledge hockey and para ice hockey, for those who are now calling it what its new name is, for how much the sport has given to me, is I wanted to help grow the sport and give back. And one of the biggest ways I saw I could do that is through education. And so that education comes through lived experience for when I get to bring able-bodied people to the rink, whether that's adults or teens, to get in the sled and play. And then additionally, I've not been able to continue it, but I created around I think it's 30 instructional videos on sledge hockey that are on YouTube, because there wasn't, and still really isn't, much content to inform people about how to set up your sled or how to turn or how to carry the puck. And I'd like to do more. I ran out of resources and time. But those are a few different ways that I would like to continue to give back and grow the sport. And actually, one other thing too is in the corporate program, we were running a charitable component where if you donate $1,000, that will purchase the sleds and sticks for a child with a disability to get involved in the sport. So to date, we've donated over $30,000 worth of equipment for 32 children to get involved in the sport of sledge hockey.
One of the most touching commercials, I think it's Timbits, is when the dad builds the sled for his son, and he walks him out, puts him in the sled, and he says to the kid, "Are you good?" And he goes, and he's kind of a little nervous, and then off he goes. It was that's a surreal moment. So creating that benefit for kids to be active, regardless if they have things that are holding back a little bit, it just shows that you can do it if your mindset's in the right space. So I know Rob's really big on the whole mindset experience, but I'm going to ask you one question that kind of the big challenge, and the reason why we called our event Mental Fitness is there has been, for the longest time, the stigma of the term mental health. So in your eyes, based on the fact that the incredible story you've had, what's your definition, and how can we remove that stigma and make it more of a positive spin?
That's a great question. For all the work that I do, I've never really had anybody ask me what my definition is of mental health, which makes me really think about that. So I don't have a one sentence answer of mental health, but for me, it's mental health is well-being. So are you happy with your life? If you're not happy with your life, are you willing to take the steps to move forward to make a change in that area? Do you have a healthy balance in some way of work and life, and how much time you spend behind the computer, how much time you spend with your friends, or do you have self-care practices? These are the questions that I tend to ask other people when they're trying to understand how they can get their mental health on track. I also think that it's important to just be willing to talk about it. Like when I've had moments where I'm super open about this stuff. So I was suicidal on 3 different occasions, and I've called the suicide hotline 3 times in my life, and I don't have a problem with that, because every time I called, it was just a normal person, just like you or I, on the other end of the phone. And each of those phone calls were less than 10 minutes, and I got better. I just needed somebody to talk to. So when I think about mental health, just being okay with not being okay. And if you need help, being willing to reach out and ask for some help.
One of the speakers we actually have for the event is Chris Beach. And he did a little 4-minute video that showed up on LinkedIn. He himself has suffered from some bipolar and some mental challenges, but he's not a big fan of the word mental. He'd actually prefer to see in brain health or brain fitness, whatever the case may be, which is, how do we spin it, how we market it to kind of get the stigma out of there. But that you kind of touch on the suicide. And one of the reasons why I'm very personal, or this event is very personal to me. I know I lost my cousin. I lost my brother, lost his best friend. There's a few kids. One of them happened to be a kid that I happened to coach in his first year of rugby. 2 years later, he sadly took his life, believe it or not, on the same day that my son was graduating from high school. And of course, all the texts that went around that night were all about that. And I found out the following day, and it just messed me up, because my big claim to fame and my tagline with Paradigm Sports, or other arm, don't be a kid's last coach. So I potentially was that kid's last coach, which deeply saddened me. And it took me a long time to kind of get through that. What can we do? Like you said, that you were able to tap into suicide prevention phone numbers. So is there one of the other things that we're going to be doing with this event is promoting Buddy Check for Jesse, and who's Stu Gershman, who lost his son, 22 years old, to suicide, to promote the awareness and the benefits for coaches to talk about mental health. What can we do further to help kids that are struggling and their headspace getting a little awry, especially now that we're coming out of COVID? I know there's a lot of kids that are messed up. What suggestions do you have on that front?
So I'm not 100% certain if I'll be speaking to this or sharing this in my session in July, but I need to share it now, given your question. One of the tools, another tool from the Resilience Toolbox that I share, I call it the 3 A's. Admit, ask, and accept. When we are struggling with mental health challenges, often the first challenge we face is that we don't want to admit to ourselves that we have a problem. So it's important that we admit that we are struggling, that's okay. That it's okay to not be okay. So first, tackle the problem of each of us getting past ourselves and getting out of our own way, so that we can then move on to the second step, which is to actually ask for the help. Because nobody knows you're struggling unless you say something. And so that might mean when you reach out and ask for help, that could be calling the suicide prevention line. That could be going to your human resources team if you're within the workplace. That could be speaking to your coach. That could be your parents. That could be your best friend. That might just be a stranger on the street that you bump into on the corner who just happens to resonate with you that day. But the second step is to, once you recognize you have a problem, is to actually verbalize that to someone and actually ask for some help. And then the third key for the 3 A's is to actually accept the help. So, for example, if today on this video, this interview that you're watching here today, if you, a viewer, hear us speak about something like the suicide prevention line, or the importance to go speak to your parent or your coach is to actually accept that help and implement it and experiment with it. So as an example, a book is only so good unless you read it. So if you ask for help and someone says, hey, read this book, and you say, thank you, you take the book, but you don't read it, you're not accepting the help. You're not putting it into practice. You're not applying it. So we need to actually put into practice whatever that help is. So if you have a recommendation to call someone or a resource, is to actually make that phone call. If it means speaking to someone that you know is available, or like sending them a text, it's to actually send that text message today, like right now. Don't wait and talk yourself out of it. Then you're going back to step one again, getting in your own way. So the 3 A's, I find, whether it's mental health related or even just in your professional life, trying to get your homework done, trying to move a project forward at work. If you're getting in your own way, you're stuck. 3 A's: admit, ask, and accept.
Brilliant analogy. Rob, you got anything to tag on to that?
Yeah, no, I think that, we're talking about mental health. The title of the event is mental fitness. And I think that there's definitely an overlap, right? And I think that, sometimes we become, there's some confusion between that. Both are definitely important topics. I think the mental health does carry a different stigma than mental fitness. My approach is a little bit more on the mental fitness side. And I think that Kevin covers a wide gamut in his programs as I've had the chance to kind of look at them. The 3 A's is very important because I think that part of your program, Kevin, addresses the mental health aspect. The mental fitness side now is once you've gotten past that accept part, is now to take the Resilience Toolbox and start to build and create on that. And so that's kind of where my program also caters to. And it becomes more of an understanding of yourself, building the core values of you as a person, and knowing that you're a lot more than just the jersey you're wearing or the sport that you're playing. And so I think when you combine a combination of both the mental health and the mental fitness, it's a very powerful tools in both of them for people to embrace and use. I think the biggest challenge we're all facing right now is education and getting people to understand that they do have choices, they have options. Some of the use of some of the labels that we've used in the past, and disregarding those for purposes of becoming better. I love Kevin using the term well-being. We are all beings, and we want to be well-beings. Finding that happiness, really, and detaching from the outcome, I think is so important as we are all on our journeys, trying to find, or complete that vision or that goal that we're trying to get to. And, if we can appreciate the moment, I think we'll become a lot more versatile as we move through these difficult times.
Yeah, especially because we're coming out of the worst pandemic this world's ever faced, and for the last, I kind of lost track. We had 16 months, we had 15 months. We've been cooped up. You guys in Ontario have been really cooped up. We're not so much. We're starting to open up.
Well, I think I'd rather go through COVID than the plague. So I'm not sure that.
Yeah, but we've lived
in our lifetimes. I get it.
And the big challenge now is, what's the new normal going to look like? I've been using the analogy, the better normal. Like this kind of our whole claim to fame with For Love of the Game is focusing on, getting kids into the game, and they should love the game more at the end of the season. They did at the beginning, kind of curb the attrition rates, keep them active well into their adulthood. So Kevin, maybe give us some insight as we're kind of wrapping up. Your programs, are they available online, and are you aspiring to then get back to face-to-face when we're permitted to do so? And maybe give us some more on what your actual programs are and how people can find them.
Yeah. My website, kevinrempel.com, is the best place to go for resources. there's a lot of blog articles there about how to prioritize your well-being, how to increase your mental resilience, and you can learn more about the Resilience Toolbox there as well. Sledge Hockey, of course, like I said, is not operating, but since we're on a sports channel here, if you were to type in playsledgehockey.com, SLEDGE, hockey.com, then that'll give you some a look at what the program is like and also the sport if you've never seen the sport before. But those would be the best places I would start. And whether you're an individual looking for some support I could help, or if you're as part of a team or a company, we're also happy to chat about that as well.
I got a quick question before we move on, and it has to do with the renaming, Sledge versus Para now. And I just noticed that. I'm curious because I haven't even looked this up, but I just thought about it as we're sitting here. Where did the term sledge come from? Sledge hockey. So
I need to actually look this up again because it's been a while. I know it came from Sweden. I don't know if I can find this real quickly, but on the topic about 1960s in Stockholm, Sweden, is when sledge hockey was created. And at that time, they didn't even have two sticks. They only had one stick with a blade. The other one was just a straight shaft with nothing on it. But the name was the name of the sport was renamed in 2017 or 2018 to para ice hockey because sledge, the word sledge in different languages meant different things.
Right.
And I can't remember the whole ins and outs about it because it's been a while since I actually thought about it. But that's the skinny, is that came out of Sweden in the 60s. And for language purposes, they changed it to para ice hockey recently.
Appreciate that.
That would have been 3-4 years ago, and it's still the sledge hockey is going to take a while. It's kind of like me with they changed the hockey age groups.
Oh yeah,
I'm involved in the high performance program this summer with BC Hockey, and Pee Wee, Bantam, Atom, like for my whole life. And now it's U18, U15. I have to constantly correcting myself when I'm interacting with coaches. Oh man, but it takes a while for that whole shift to take place. So
you want to know something funny?
A lot of math involved in that on my end. Trying to figure out what the age is because they've changed the ages too from when I played. So it's like a year back now. So what is U12? Is that Pee Wee? Is that minor Pee Wee? Never my strength.
Because the two of you guys are in the center of the universe, you have enough kids to have one age group. So you have the minor and the major breaks. Yeah. We have 2-year age groups because we don't. In BC, there's just not enough kids to play in like the 99s or the 98s, which is my son's age groups. So we don't have the minor major. They only have that in spring hockey when they go into tournaments. Otherwise, it's like the old Atom is now the U11, so it's the 9 and 10-year-olds. And Pee Wee is the U13, which is the 11 and 12-year-olds. And Bantam is U15. Okay. Midget for us is a 3-year age group, which is a panic attack for a lot of parents when their 15-year-old kid's going to be going up against monsters that are 17. And that's a huge disparity. So they're pushing also for just a U15, like the one age group, and then the 2 other age groups. So, but can't thank you enough for doing this, Kevin. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm like itching the bits. And so those of you that are still here with us or still seeing this, Kevin is opening up as our event. And I can't wait to see your talk because I can imagine it's going to be full of great nuggets and insight of what we can do to kind of build resiliency as we're kind of coming out of this craziness with COVID. The timing couldn't be better as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to be joining each of you and seeing everyone there. So if you haven't yet, please register and catch you on the 17th.
All right, Rob, you got anything last to finish up? No?
Save that date. Get in there. And July 17th, what's the times again? We're running from 9 a.m. until
9 to 3 p.m. Pacific time, noon to 6 p.m. Eastern time, and try to accommodate global times because we do have people signing up for our events. And just as a last takeaway, this event we are aspiring to raise funds for Buddy Check for Jesse. And we have a kind of a 3 registration tiers. And the third one, if you take advantage of it, you can get a half hour of one-on-one with me and Rob, share some insight. I'm also going to be throwing in a coach's kit that's worth $50. And we want to really try to raise as much money as we can, because it started off in BC, but now BC Hockey, Via Sport, and even Hockey Canada are starting to get behind it. And they are starting to branch out. I just talked to Stu Gershman, who's the founder. They're not just going to be in the hockey space. They want to gear the mental health awareness tools and every resources they're doing for all sports, which really kind of goes hand in hand with where we're at for the love of the game. So hopefully we'll see you all on July 17th. I'm really looking forward to your chat. Thanks for doing this, Kevin.
Kevin, appreciate it, brother. Good to see you again. Looking forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, Rob. Absolutely. We'll see you guys soon.
See you, Glenn. Thanks.
See you later.